October 8, 1942, 23:47 hours. Mozdok sector, Northern Caucasus Front. The engine coughs once. Then silence. Cold air slashes through the open cockpit of the Polycarpov P-2 as Senior Lieutenant Yevdokia Brushanskia eases a control stick forward. Frost forms along the rim of her goggles. The night smells of oil, canvas, and distant smoke. Below, German campfires burn in rigid lines, illuminating rows of trucks and stacked ammunition crates. A sentry pauses mid-step, head tilted. He hears something he cannot place. Not an engine, not wind, a whisper. In the rear cockpit, Navigator Nina Yulianenko leans into the slipstream and counts under her breath. 800 meters. 700. The plywood wings tremble as the biplane settles into its glide. The M11 radial engine is dead now, propeller blades frozen in black silhouette against the stars. The aircraft no longer sounds like war. It sounds like air moving through dry grass. You would expect fear to paralyze them. It sharpens them. The German field camp below belongs to a signal detachment supporting armored units pushing toward the Caucasus oil fields. Telephone lines snake through dirt trenches. A radio mast rises beside a cluster of tents. Officers review maps under lantern light. Somewhere, a cook scrapes burned potatoes from a metal pan. Routine, predictable, secure. Brushanskia raises 2 fingers. The first bomb drops cleanly from its rack. There is no warning whistle, no siren, only gravity. 3 seconds later, fire erupts beside the fuel dump. A truck lifts from the ground as if punched by an invisible fist. Flame rolls outward in a violent bloom, turning canvas tents into torches. Men scatter, boots slipping in churned mud. Someone screams for the flak battery. The second bomb follows, then the third. The P-2 banks left, still gliding, barely visible against a low cloud ceiling. Only when they clear the camp perimeter does Brushanskia reopen the throttle. The engine sputters, catches, roars back to life. Too late for retaliation. On the ground, an Oberstfreiter stares upward, heart pounding so hard he feels it in his teeth. He swears he saw a dark silhouette riding the night air without sound. He mutters the word hex under his breath, which, within weeks, the men of the Luftwaffe's 4th Air Fleet will formalize a name, Nachthexen, Night Witches. But tonight, it is only confusion and flame. The 588th Night Bomber Regiment has been at the front for just months. Formed under the insistence of Marina Raskova, one of the Soviet Union's most celebrated aviators, the unit is composed entirely of women. Pilots, navigators, mechanics. They fly aircraft considered obsolete even before the war began. The Polycarpov P-2 was built as a trainer and crop duster. Maximum speed, roughly 150 kilometers per hour. Bomb load, light. Armor, none. Parachutes, rarely issued. And yet it is precisely what they need. The wooden frame absorbs radar poorly. The slow speed allows low-altitude maneuvering between hills and tree lines. The open cockpit forces total awareness. Every gust is felt, every vibration understood. They attack not with mass, but with persistence. 8 sorties per night is common. 10 is not unheard of. Back at their forward strip, lanterns glow under heavy cloth to hide light from reconnaissance aircraft. Ground crew in padded jackets refuel by hand pump. Fingers raw from cold metal. Bombs are lifted manually and secured beneath wings with practiced efficiency. No heated hangars. No rest tents. Only mud, frost, and repetition. Another pair of P-2s lifts into darkness as Brushanskia descends to land. The field is little more than flattened earth marked by dim lamps. She touches down gently, wheels bouncing once before settling. Before the engine fully stops, mechanics rush forward. Fuel hose, bomb rack, quick inspection of struts and wires. There is no celebration, only preparation. Over German lines, anti-aircraft crews finally react. Searchlights claw at clouds. Trace a round stitch across empty sky. The noise is furious but directionless. The enemy fires at absence. In a command bunker miles away, a Luftwaffe officer studies reports arriving by field telephone. Small bombs. Repeated harassment. Psychological disruption. He demands fighter interception at dawn. He does not yet understand that dawn is irrelevant, because they come only at night. Back in the cockpit, Brashanskaya signals readiness. The engine rattles alive once more. Her navigator checks the compass heading by dim flashlight. Another target awaits beyond a river bend. You can imagine the men below, staring upward, wondering when the engine will cut again. The P-2 lifts off into black sky, climbing slowly, almost reluctantly. Frost gathers along wing edges. Breath clouds in thin air. Somewhere ahead, German soldiers smoke beside stacked artillery shells, unaware that the sound of wind above them may not be wind at all. The engine note fades as altitude increases. A gloved hand reaches for throttle, and once more, the night prepares to whisper. October 15, 1941, 1810 hours. Moscow, Kremlin offices. Snow presses against tall windows as Marina Raskova stands before Joseph Stalin's desk. Her uniform is immaculate, boots polished despite slush outside. She does not blink when he studies her. The capital smells of coal smoke and fear. German Army Group Center advances steadily. Airfields burn on the western horizon. Raskova speaks clearly. The Soviet Union needs more pilots. Not in theory. Now, women have written her letters by the thousands, demanding to fight. They have trained in aero clubs, logged flight hours, studied navigation and mechanics. They are ready. Stalin listens without visible emotion. Outside, artillery echoes faintly. Within days, Order Number 0099 authorizes 3 all-female aviation regiments. The 586 Fighter Aviation Regiment, the 587 Dive Bomber Regiment, and the 588 Night Bomber Regiment. It is an extraordinary decision in a nation fighting for survival. Resources are scarce, aircraft scarcer, yet the order stands. By spring 1942, young women arrive at Engels Air Base on the Volga River. Some are barely 20. Many have left universities, factories, or classrooms behind. They cut their hair short. Uniforms are altered to fit smaller frames. Boots are stuffed with paper because standard sizes are too large. Training is compressed, relentless. Navigation drills under blackout conditions. Emergency landing practice on rough fields. Engine maintenance classes taught by instructors who at first doubt them. The P-2 aircraft assigned to the 588th is basic to the point of insult. Wood and canvas. Tandem cockpits. A Shvetsov M11 radial engine producing barely 125 horsepower. No radio in most units. No armor plating. At night, frost coats the wings as they practice touch-and-go landings. Wind cuts through thin gloves. Goggles ice over. Instructors shout corrections over engine noise. Errors are not tolerated. War will not forgive them. Senior Lieutenant Yevdokia Brashanskaya assumes command of the 588th, calm, disciplined. She enforces precision. Every bomb must count. Every landing must be clean. There will be no indulgence of doubt. The women develop rituals. Silk scarves tied tight against drafts. Pencils tucked into sleeves for quick calculations. Navigators memorize landmarks. River bends, rail lines, church spires shattered by shell fire. They cannot rely on instruments alone. By summer, deployment orders arrive. The Caucasus Front requires harassment missions against German supply routes advancing toward Grozny's oil fields. The 588th is reassigned forward. At Mozdok, their new airstrip is nothing more than a flattened stretch of earth. Tents serve as barracks. Mechanics sleep beside fuel drums. The front line lies close enough that artillery rumble never fully fades. The first combat sorties are tentative. Bomb loads are small, often just 2 FAB, 50 explosives per aircraft. Pilots fly in pairs. One draws searchlights and anti-aircraft fire, weaving low to distract. The second cuts engine and glides silently to target. It is choreography learned through repetition. Loss comes early. A flare catches one P-2 in full silhouette. Tracer rounds climb. Canvas tears easily. The aircraft spirals down beyond the riverbank. There are no parachutes to save them. The regiment gathers at dawn silent as names are accorded. Then they prepare for the next night. Word spreads quickly through German ranks. The attacks are not devastating in tonnage, but they are relentless. Sleep becomes fragile. Fuel dumps ignite without warning. Ammunition trucks explode hours after dusk. The women fly multiple sorties per night because their aircraft carry so little. After landing, mechanics reload immediately. Engines are checked by lantern light. There is no heated shelter. They drink weak tea from metal cups and return to cockpits before exhaustion fully registers. You can imagine the rhythm. Takeoff, climb, engine cut, glide, release, escape, repeat. German troops begin firing wildly at any nocturnal sound. Some claim brooms sweep overhead. Others swear they hear laughter in the dark. Propaganda leaflets promise iron crosses to any pilot who shoots one down. Few succeed. The platoon's low speed makes it difficult for Messerschmitt Bf 109 fighters to engage without stalling. By late 1942, the 588th has completed thousands of sorties. Their bombing accuracy improves with each mission. Bridges, supply depots, artillery positions, small targets, precise disruption. In October, the regiment earns the Guards designation, becoming the 46th Guards Night Bomber Aviation Regiment. It is formal recognition of performance under fire. Pride is visible but restrained. They know recognition does not shield canvas from bullets. Winter approaches again. Ice forms along struts before takeoff. Breath fogs goggles instantly, yet engines start regardless. Orders come nightly. The women climb into fragile aircraft and taxi toward darkness. They do not speak of fear openly. It exists, acknowledged but contained. Duty overrides it. Somewhere across the front, a German infantryman tightens his coat against the cold and listens to the sky. He has begun to dread the quiet more than the noise, because the silence means they are already there. And tonight, the regiment will attempt something riskier than routine harassment. Intelligence reports a heavily guarded ammunition train halted near the Terek River. The target promises impact far beyond its size, but reaching it requires flying deeper than ever before. November 2nd, 1942, 0:32 hours. Near the Terek River rail junction. The wind shifts without warning. Senior Lieutenant Yevdokia Brushanskaya feels it first through control stick. A cross-current sliding down from the mountains, subtle but dangerous at low speed. Ahead, faint rail lines glimmer silver beneath a quarter moon. The halted ammunition train sits motionless beside a small depot, boxcars lined like dark teeth. German sentries patrol with rifles slung and collars pulled high against the cold. In the rear cockpit, navigator Nina Yulianenko traces the river's curve with her eyes. No radio, no radar warning. Only landmarks memorized hours earlier under lantern light. Altitude, 900 meters. Too high for accuracy, too low for safety. Behind them, 3 additional platoons approach in stagger formation, engines buzzing softly. The plan is simple in concept, unforgiving in execution. 2 aircraft will draw searchlights from the south. Brushanskaya's pair will glide directly over the train once attention shifts. A green flare rises unexpectedly from the German perimeter. They have been spotted. Tracer fire claws upward, red arcs stitching across the sky. One of the diversion aircraft banks sharply, engine screaming as it descends to treetop level. Anti-aircraft guns pivot, chasing movement. Searchlights ignite, beams sweeping like frantic fingers. Brushanskaya does not hesitate. She cuts the throttle. The engine dies. Instantly, the platoon becomes a shadow slipping between beams. Wind hisses across canvas wings. The aircraft shudders in turbulence from exploding flak. Below, soldiers shout coordinates in rapid German. Yulianenko leans forward, counting seconds to target. The depot roof comes into view. Beyond it, the train. Boxcars marked with ammunition insignia. One chance. She pulls the release. The first FAB 50 falls clean. 3-second stretch into eternity. The explosion tears open a rail line beside the locomotive, lifting gravel and steel in a violent burst. Searchlights snap toward the blast. Confusion multiplies. Second, she whispers. Another bomb drops. This one strikes closer to the center of the train. A boxcar erupts from within, flames punching skyward. Then comes the secondary detonation, a thunderclap that shakes even the gliding platoon. Shells ignite in chain reaction. The night transforms into white fire. Shock waves buffet the fragile biplane, slamming it sideways. Brushanskia fights the stick, teeth clenched. Canvas fabric strains against wooden ribs. For a moment, the aircraft feels less like a machine and more like a leaf caught in a storm. Below, the rail yard dissolves into chaos. Ammunition cooks off in wild succession. Tracer rounds fire blindly as gunners panic. One shell detonates near a fuel tanker, adding another pillar of flame to the inferno. The diversion aircraft races overhead again, drawing concentrated flak. One is struck. Sparks trail from its wing root. It dips, recovers barely, engine coughing. Restart, Yulianenko urges. Brushanskia pushes the throttle forward. The engine resists. One cough. Two, for a heartbeat. Nothing. Then the M11 catches with a rough growl. Power returns unevenly. Altitude is lower than she expected. Trees loom closer. She pulls gently, unwilling to stall. A searchlight locks onto them. The beam freezes the platoon in harsh brilliance. Canvas, struts, helmets, exposed. Flak erupts immediately. Black bursts around them, fragments slicing through fabric. A sharp crack splits the airframe. The aircraft lurches. Yulianenko turns, scanning wings in the dim glow. A hole tears through the upper canvas, but spars remain intact. Fuel pressure steady. Oil temperature climbing, but acceptable. They dive deliberately toward darkness, slipping beneath the beam's angle. The searchlight overshoots. Another explosion from the train floods the sky with smoke, providing cover. Behind them, the damaged diversion aircraft struggles westward, altitude bleeding away. Its pilot maintains course toward friendly lines. Engine misfiring in irregular rhythm. Brushanskia levels out just above treetop height. The smell of smoke and cordite fills the cockpit. Wind bites through gloves already stiff with cold. They clear the river bend. German fire fades into distant thunder. Only then does the enormity register. The ammunition train continues to detonate in rolling blasts, lighting the horizon like artificial dawn. Supply lines feeding armored units toward Grozny have been crippled in a single night, but victory feels fragile. As they approach Mozdok's darkened strip, a signal lamp blinks from ground. One aircraft missing. The damaged platoon has not yet returned. Mechanics stand motionless beside fuel drums, eyes fixed east. Minutes stretch. Then, faintly, an uneven engine note emerges from the darkness. The wounded aircraft limps into view, wings shredded but intact. It touches down hard, bouncing twice before skidding to a stop. Crew climb out shaken but alive. Relief ripples through the regiment. No cheering, just the silent nods. The train burns through the remainder of the night. German artillery units will wake to find ammunition stocks reduced to twisted metal. Delays will follow. Plans will adjust. Yet retaliation is inevitable. Luftwaffe reconnaissance will trace flight paths. Fighter patrols will increase. Back in her tent, Brushanskia studies the next set of coordinates by dim lantern. Intelligence reports intensified anti-aircraft defenses along the Kuban bridgehead. Heavier guns, better coordination. The next mission will not allow such clean escape. And tomorrow night, they fly again. April 18, 1943. 1:18 hours. Kuban bridgehead, Black Sea coast. The sky is restless tonight. Low clouds drag across a half moon, breaking and reforming like torn canvas. Below, German artillery batteries line the defensive perimeter, barrels angled toward the eastern horizon. The Kuban bridgehead is critical ground, anchoring Axis forces in the Caucasus. It is no longer a quiet sector. Senior Lieutenant Yevdokia Brushanskia feels the difference immediately. Searchlights are already probing the sky before the first bomb has fallen. Intelligence was correct. The Germans are waiting. 3 platoons approach from the north at staggered intervals. Engines humming in uneven rhythm. Oil temperatures steady. Fuel minimal. Each aircraft carries 2 FAB, 50 bombs beneath its lower wings. Not enough to destroy a fortress. Enough to wound it repeatedly. In the rear cockpit of the lead aircraft, Navigator Irina Sabrova traces coastline contours against memory. No radio chatter breaks the dark. Only hand signals and discipline. A flare bursts upward from the German line. White light floods the air. Cut, Brzezinski orders. The throttle drops. The engine dies. Instantly, the P2 sinks into silence, gliding between beams of searching light. Wind tears at scarves and rattles struts. The aircraft's low stall speed becomes its greatest weapon. It drifts where faster fighters would plummet. But tonight, something else waits above. A distant engine note cuts through the darkness. Sharper, faster. Messerschmitt Bf-110. A twin-engine night fighter assigned to intercept the persistent intruders harassing German supply lines. Its crew has studied the pattern. They know the witches cut engines before bombing. They plan to attack during the glide, when escape is slowest. The fighter dived from altitude, silhouette briefly crossing the moon. Sabrova sees it first. She taps Brzezinski's shoulder and points. There is no time for elegance. Brzezinski restarts the engine mid-glide, sacrificing silence for survival. The M-11 sputters awake as the Bf-110 opens fire. Tracer rounds streak past, red line slicing inches from the upper wing. Canvas snaps under shock waves. The P-2 drops toward treetop height, engine straining at full throttle. Its maximum speed barely exceeds 150 kilometers per hour. The Messerschmitt can double that. You would think the chase ends here. It does not. The German pilot overshoots. The P2 is too slow. He must climb, circle, and reposition for another pass. In that narrow window, Brzezinski banks sharply toward a dark valley, using terrain as shield. Behind them, a second P2 commits to the attack run. Engine cut. Glide steady. Bomb released. The explosion rips through an artillery position, destroying a searchlight and silencing one battery. Darkness returns to a slice of sky. The Bf-110 reappears, angling downward again. This time it fires earlier, saturating the area with tracers. One round punches through the tail of the diversion aircraft. Splinters spray. The aircraft wobbles violently. Pilot Galina Dokutovich fights the controls, jaw clenched. The rudder responds sluggishly but holds. She drops her bomb prematurely, sacrificing accuracy to regain maneuverability. The blast disrupts anti-aircraft crews long enough for her to escape into cloud cover. Brzezinski levels out just meters above the ground. The valley is narrow, air turbulent. Trees flash past in blurred darkness. She keeps the engine low, minimizing profile. The night fighter cannot safely follow at that altitude. It climbs instead, searching for easier prey. On the ground, German infantry curse the disruption. Sleep has become impossible along the bridgehead. Ammunition stockpiles ignite unexpectedly. Horses panic in their tethers. Officers demand immediate results from Luftwaffe command. Back at the forward strip, mechanics listen anxiously for returning engines. Each delayed arrival tightens silence. When Brzezinski's aircraft touches down, riddled with small tears in canvas, relief spreads but does not linger. Fuel. Reload. Inspect damage. They launch again within 30 minutes. This time, the Messerschmitt waits at higher altitude, conserving fuel. It tracks sound rather than sight. The moment an engine restarts, it dives. A third P2 is caught in open sky. Tracers connect. Flames lick along the lower wing. The navigator attempts to smother fire with gloved hands, but fuel ignites too quickly. The aircraft spirals downward, vanishing beyond a ridge in a dull flash. No parachutes. The regiment will record their names at dawn. Anger replaces grief almost instantly. The remaining crews press harder, attacking supply depots and mortar pits with renewed precision. Each small bomb feels heavier tonight. By 3:40 hours, German anti-aircraft ammunition is running low. Searchlight crews hesitate before switching beams on, fearing immediate targeting. The Messerschmitt lands to refuel, its pilot frustrated by the difficulty of engaging such slow adversaries. The witches have adapted again. As first light creeps along the Black Sea horizon, smoke rises from damaged gun emplacements. The Kuban defenses remain intact, but strained. Sleep-deprived soldiers rub their eyes and whisper the name They pretend not to believe. Naktheksen, in her tent, Brzezinski studies casualty reports. 1 aircraft lost, 2 damaged. Mission success partial but significant. The cost is rising. Higher command signals intensified operations ahead of a major Soviet offensive. More sorties, deeper penetration, greater risk. Outside, mechanics patch canvas with numb fingers. The Patus stand fragile, yet defiant against dawn light. Tonight, the Luftwaffe will return with more fighters, and the sky will belong to whoever refuses to yield first. May 29, 1943, 2:06 hours. Taman Peninsula approaches to Novorossiysk. The sea is invisible, but you can smell it. Salt carried inland on a damp wind that rattles fabric wings and slips beneath collars. The front has shifted west. German forces cling to the Taman Peninsula as Soviet armies tighten the noose. Artillery flashes along the coastline in distant pulses. The 46th Guards Night Bomber Aviation Regiment, once the 588, lines its Patus along a crude strip car from scrubland. Guard status has brought recognition, not comfort. The aircraft remain plywood and canvas. The missions remain relentless. Tonight's target is a fortified supply hub feeding German units evacuating toward Crimea. Ammunition depots, fuel reserves, field headquarters. The approach is dangerous. Anti-aircraft batteries ring the peninsula. Radar stations have improved coordination with night fighters. Senior Lieutenant Yevdokia Brzezinski reviews the flight plan under red-filtered light. 3 waves, staggered intervals, continuous pressure until dawn. Engines start one by one, coughing into life. The smell of fuel mixes with sea air. Takeoff at 2:18. The first wave climbs slowly, silhouette swallowed by low cloud. Navigators track the shoreline by faint surf patterns barely visible in moonlight. Halfway to target, flares burst ahead. German forces anticipate them. Searchlights ignite in layered arcs, forming luminous cages in the sky. Hold altitude, Brzezinski signals. The lead pair drifts left, drawing attention. Anti-aircraft guns answer immediately, black bursts blooming at their level. Tracers stitch across darkness. Then engines cut. Silence drops like a curtain. 4 Patus glide inward from different vectors, each aiming for separate segments of the supply complex. Below, fuel drums are stacked in disciplined rows. Trucks idle near loading ramps. Officers confer beside a command tent lit from within. The first bomb strikes a fuel reservoir. Flame erupts vertically, casting violent light across the peninsula. The second detonates near an ammunition stack. A chain reaction follows, explosions snapping in quick succession. Searchlights swing frantically, catching 1 aircraft mid-glide. Its canvas glows ghostly white. Flak explodes around it. Shrapnel slices through the lower wing. Pilot Raisa Aronova grips the controls as fragments punch through fabric inches from her knee. She releases her bomb anyway. It falls short, but forces gunners to scatter. A Bf-110 roars overhead, guns blazing. Its tracers overshoot, the Patus too slow to match calculated lead. The German pilot curses and banks steeply for another attempt. Below, chaos multiplies. Fuel trucks ignite, tires bursting in sharp reports. Horses rear against tethers. Infantry dive for trenches. Command lines dissolve into shouted fragments. Second wave inbound. The sky barely settles before more engines approach. German gunners, exhausted and disoriented by smoke, struggle to reacquire targets. Engine cut, glide, bomb release. Each aircraft carries only small payloads, yet repetition transforms nuisance into devastation. By the 6th sortie of the night, multiple depots burn uncontrolled. Ammunition detonates sporadically, forcing German logistics officers to suspend loading operations entirely. A third wave arrives as dawn hints faintly along the eastern horizon. Risk increases with every minute of growing light. 1 Patus is caught in crossfire from overlapping flak positions. The explosion beneath it lifts the fragile aircraft violently. The right wing shears at the strut. For a suspended second, it hangs impossibly in place. Then it falls. There's no time to mark the crash site. The remaining crews press forward. Brzezinski leads a final glide directly over the command tent. Her navigator times the drop precisely. The bomb tears through canvas roofing before detonating inside. When the engine restarts, its sound harsher than usual, metal protesting fatigue. She ignores it and steers toward the darkened strip miles east. Behind them, Taman burns. Thick columns of smoke spiral upward, visible even as dawn breaks fully. German engineers scramble to salvage supplies, but much is lost. Evacuation schedules will be delayed. Artillery resupply disrupted. At landing, mechanics count aircraft automatically. One missing, another trailing smoke, but intact. Faces remain expressionless as they guide damaged planes into position. Inside the operations tent, reports accumulate. Successful hits confirmed by reconnaissance. Significant fuel losses inflicted. Enemy fighter response intensified, but ineffective in preventing majority of strikes. Guards designation feels earned again tonight, yet attrition is visible. Uniforms are patched repeatedly. Hands tremble slightly when gloves come off. Fatigue etches itself beneath eyes. Brzezinski studies casualty forms without comment. Names will be forwarded to headquarters. Families notified weeks later. There is no ceremony before sleep, only collapse onto narrow cots for a few brief hours. By afternoon, reconnaissance confirms extensive damage across the Taman supply network. Soviet ground forces advance incrementally, pressure mounting on Axis withdrawal routes. The regiment has flown dozens of sorties in a single night, each aircraft landing, refueling, relaunching with mechanical rhythm. Small bombs, enormous persistence. As dusk approaches again, mechanics finish patching bullet holes with fresh canvas strips. Engines are checked, bomb rack secured. Orders arrive for deeper penetration over Crimea itself. Longer distance, stronger defenses. The women gather beside their aircraft as sun fades red over the peninsula. No speeches, no theatrics, just preparation. Tonight, they will cross open water under enemy radar, and the margin for error will shrink to almost nothing. September 12, 1943, 1:42 hours. Over the Kerch Strait, Black Sea, the water below is a sheet of ink. No shoreline visible, no landmarks, only faint starlight trembling across moving blackness. Senior Lieutenant Yevdokia Brzezinski keeps the Polikarpov too steady at 800 meters, engine vibrating through the wooden frame. Crossing open water in a fabric biplane was never part of its design. There is nowhere to land if the engine fails, nowhere to glide except into cold sea. Behind her, navigator Nina Yulianenko studies a compass illuminated by shielded flashlight. Wind drift calculations must be exact. A slight error means missing Crimea entirely and emerging over heavily defended naval positions. The objective lies beyond the strait, a German supply concentration near Kerch, reinforcing retreating units evacuating the Taman Peninsula. Ammunition crates, fuel barges, staging areas for troops awaiting transport. The crossing is the most dangerous phase. Radar coverage is thicker here. Coastal batteries remain alert after weeks of harassment. 2 additional platoons follow at staggered intervals, engines separated by careful timing, to avoid presenting a single audible cluster. Halfway across, searchlights ignite from the Crimean side, probing sky in disciplined sweeps. They are not yet fixed on target. They are waiting. Maintain. Brzezinski signals without turning. Altitude drops slightly as she compensates for crosswind. The sea offers no visual depth perception. Horizon blends with cloud. The aircraft feels suspended in void. At 1:58, the coastline emerges faintly, a darker line against darkness. Anti-aircraft fire begins preemptively. Time to expected arrival windows calculated from previous raids. Black bursts blossom ahead. German gunners fire into probability rather than sight. Brzezinski banks south, altering approach vector. Cut! The engine dies instantly. Silence over water is absolute. The sudden absence of vibration feels unnatural. The P-2 glides toward shore, wings creaking softly. Below, coastal batteries continue firing at altitude they estimate by sound memory. Their timing is precise, but not perfect. The witches have learned to vary glide distance each mission. They cross the shoreline undetected. Ahead lies the target zone, a cluster of supply barges moored near a rail spur feeding inland depots. Trucks idle along a dirt quay. Guard patrol with rifles slung loosely, fatigue evident in posture. The first bomb falls toward a fuel barge. Impact. A bloom of flame spreads across the water's surface, igniting spilled fuel in jagged patterns. Reflections shimmer violently across the strait. Searchlights snap toward the explosion, beams crisscrossing in frantic geometry. The second bomb targets the rail spur. It detonates beside stacked ammunition crates, triggering immediate secondary blasts. Shards of wood and metal scatter across the quay. Restart. The engine hesitates longer than usual. Moist sea air has dampened ignition. Below, a Bf-110 night fighter lifts from a nearby airfield, scrambling under flare illumination. Its engines roar with authority absent from a fragile P-2. The M-11 finally catches. Power returns unevenly. Brzezinski pulls east, back toward open water. Trace of fire streaks upward, striking near the tail. Fabric tears with a ripping snap. Control cables shudder, but hold. One of the trailing P-2s is caught in a searchlight cone mid-glide. Anti-aircraft guns converge instantly. Explosions surround it. The aircraft drops sharply, then recovers just above rooftop height. Its pilot releases bombs prematurely, detonating among supply trucks. Flames leap between vehicles, forcing German drivers to abandon them. The Bf-110 closes distance rapidly. It overshoots the slow target once, then climbs aggressively for another pass. This time it anticipates reduced speed. Its cannons flash. Rounds punch through upper wing fabric of the second trailing aircraft. A small fire sparks near the fuel line. Navigator Tamara Pamyatnik leans forward, beating flames with her glove. The pilot dives towards shoreline, skimming meters above water to extinguish fire through slipstream. The tactic works. Barely. Brzezinski reaches mid-straight as the fighter repositions again. Over water, the P-2 is vulnerable. No terrain masking. No valley to hide within. She reduces throttle deliberately, tempting overshoot. The German pilot commits to attack angle based on expected speed. The P-2 slows further, almost stalling. The Bf-110 flashes past ahead, unable to adjust in time. Brzezinski pushes throttle forward and banks sharply east. Distance increases. Flak diminishes once beyond coastal battery range. The fighter, low on fuel after repeated attack runs, breaks off pursuit. Dawn's first gray line appears behind Crimea as the P-2s approach their strip. The crossing back feels longer than approach. Salt crust forms along goggles. Hands ache from cold and tension. They land in sequence, wheels thudding against uneven earth. Mechanics rush forward. Damage inspection reveals multiple holes. One severed brace wire, superficial but concerning. Inside operations tent, reports accumulate rapidly. Reconnaissance later confirms 2 fuel barges destroyed, rail spur disabled, supply convoy disrupted. German evacuation timetable further strained. Losses, none confirmed missing. Miraculous, exhaustion settles heavy. Crossing open water and fragile trainers has pushed limits of endurance and luck, yet new orders await even before rest is granted. Intelligence suggests German High Command is accelerating withdrawal, increased naval traffic, concentrated defenses. The next mission will require flying directly over an active harbor under full alert. No margin for engine hesitation, no space for error, and no guarantee of return. November 3rd, 1943. 2:11 hours. Kerch Harbor, Crimea. The harbor glows faintly even before the first bomb falls. Dock lamps shielded by metal hoods cast narrow cones of light over piers crowded with crates, fuel drums, and waiting troops. Barges press against one another in tight formation, smoke drifting from their funnels. German engineers rush to complete evacuation schedules before Soviet ground forces close in from the east. Above them, unseen against high cloud, the first pair of P-2 biplanes approaches. Senior Lieutenant Yevdokia Brzezinski steadies her aircraft as wind shifts unpredictably over the water. Harbor thermals rise from clustered buildings, pushing the fragile plane slightly off course. She corrects gently. Sudden movements risk stall. Behind her, navigator Nina Yulianenko measures distance to shoreline by counting seconds between lighthouse flashes. There will be no second attempt tonight. The harbor is too alert, too heavily defended. Searchlights already scan in overlapping arcs. Anti-aircraft batteries ring the docks in concentric layers. A captured Soviet radar station now assists German night defenses, increasing reaction time. The second pair of P2s diverts north, engines buzzing deliberately to draw attention. Flak erupts immediately, dark blossoms bursting in clusters. Cut! Bershanskia closes the throttle. Silence drops like a blade. The aircraft glides over outer breakwater, invisible against cloud shadow. Wind whistles softly through struts. Below, soldiers lean on rifles, unaware of the shape descending toward them. The first bomb releases toward a tightly packed fuel depot near Pier 3. Impact. Flame punches upward with violent force, igniting adjacent drums in rapid succession. Fire spreads laterally, racing along spilled fuel toward moored barges. Searchlights snap toward the explosion. Beams collide, searching frantically. Anti-aircraft guns fire without precise target, saturating sky with shrapnel. The second bomb falls toward a cluster of ammunition crates stacked beside a rail wagon. Detonation follows instantly, a thunderous blast that rattles windows across the harbor. Secondary explosions ripple outward, setting off stored shells. Shockwaves buffet the gliding P2, pushing off alignment. Restart. The engine sputters. For a heartbeat. Nothing. Below, a Bf-110 night fighter accelerates along runway, lifting into smoky air. Its silhouette cuts across burning dock lights. The M-11 catches at last. Power surges unevenly as Bershanskia banks sharply toward open water. Tracer rounds slice upward, one punching through left wing fabric. The aircraft shudders but remains controllable. North diversion aircraft now commits to attack run. Engine cut. Glide precise. Bombs drop along outer pier, severing a loading crane and collapsing it onto stacked crates. German engineers scatter. The harbor transforms into organized chaos. Fuel flames spread across water surface, reflecting violently against hulls. Troops scramble to cast off mooring lines, but debris blocks channels. The Bf-110 spots a trailing P2 silhouetted briefly by firelight. It dives, cannons flashing. Rounds tear through upper wing and rear fuselage. Pilot Maria Smirnova dives instinctively toward burning smoke columns, using rising heat distortion as visual shield. The maneuver disrupts the fighter's aim. It overshoots again, forced to climb steeply to avoid collision with crane wreckage. Bershanskia crosses shoreline at minimal altitude, engine straining. Over land, anti-aircraft coverage intensifies once more. Flak bursts dangerously close, fragments rattling against cockpit combing. A third wave approaches from southeast, exploiting confusion. Bombs strike near Harbor Command building, shattering windows and disrupting coordination. Telephone lines collapse. Orders become fragmented shouts over handheld radios. By 3:05 hours, multiple piers burn uncontrollably. One barge loaded with artillery shells detonates in a massive explosion, sending fragments hundreds of meters into air. The blast wave rolls across harbor, extinguishing some flames while igniting others. German naval officers order emergency withdrawal of remaining vessels. Several ships depart under partial darkness, abandoning cargo to save hulls. The Bf-110, low on ammunition, makes one final attack run before breaking off. It scores minor damage on a retreating P2, but fails to bring it down. The fragile biplanes scatter across varying altitudes, complicating pursuit. Dawn edges faintly along horizon as surviving aircraft regroup over the strait. Smoke columns mark the harbor unmistakably. Landing back at forward strip is subdued. One aircraft returns with shredded fabric and a bent strut. Another leaks oil but remains flyable. Miraculously, no crews are missing tonight. Inside operations tent, preliminary assessment arrives via reconnaissance observers. Substantial destruction of fuel reserves, damaged evacuation infrastructure, harbor operations halted temporarily. The cost in German logistics will be measured in days of delay. days that Soviet ground forces intend to exploit. Brushanskia removes her gloves slowly, fingers stiff from cold and strain. She studies casualty lists from previous months, aware that luck shifts unpredictably. Guard status has brought them here, to the edge of operational endurance. Outside, mechanics begin patching fresh holes with practice efficiency. Orders arrive before sunrise. Final operations over Crimea will intensify as German withdrawal accelerates. The regiment will support advancing Red Army units pressing westward. There is little time to absorb what they have achieved tonight, because the war is moving again, and the witches must follow it into the darkness once more. January 14, 1945, 23:37 hours. Near the Vistula River, Poland, snow covers the airstrip in a thin, uneven crust. Mechanics clear pathways with shovels, breath turning to frost in the lamplight. The war has shifted westward. Crimea is behind them. The Caucasus feels like another lifetime. Now the 46th Guards Night Bomber Aviation Regiment operates in support of the Vistula Oder offensive, driving toward the German heartland. Senior Lieutenant Yevdokia Brushanskia studies a new map pinned inside the operations tent. Targets tonight include artillery concentrations resisting Soviet bridgeheads and supply depots feeding defensive lines along the river. German forces are desperate, compressed, and heavily armed. Anti-aircraft density is greater than ever. The P-2 aircraft remain unchanged. Wood, canvas, minimal instrumentation. What has changed is the experience inside each cockpit. Thousands of sorties have refined instinct into calculation. Engines start at 23:52. The cold bites harder here than over the Black Sea. Oil thickens. Controls respond sluggishly until airspeed stabilizes. Navigators rely on rail lines and frozen river bends as visual markers against snow-covered terrain. At 0:28, flares erupt along the western bank. German defenders anticipate harassment. Searchlights cut through snowfall, beams refracted by drifting ice crystals. The sky appears fractured into moving shards of light. Cut. Engines die across the formation. Gliding over snow is deceptive. Sound carries differently. Shadows distort distance. Brushanskia lowers altitude carefully, trusting Yulianenko's timing. Below, an artillery battery prepares a fire towards Soviet crossing units. Crews cluster around guns, unaware of shapes descending through snowfall. Bomb release. The first explosion lands between two field pieces, scattering crews and overturning ammunition carts. Secondary blasts ignite stacked shells. Searchlights swing sharply. Anti-aircraft guns open in disciplined rhythm. Snow absorbs some shock waves, but not fragments. Shrapnel tears through upper wing fabric of a trailing aircraft. The pilot holds course long enough to release her payload before veering east. A German Focke-Wulf FW-190 configure for night interception roars overhead. Engine note deeper than the old Bf-110s they once faced. Its speed advantage is decisive, but snow reduces visibility. It dives toward muzzle flashes rather than clear silhouettes. 1-2 is briefly illuminated mid-glide. Tracers slice close. The pilot dives to treetop level, weaving between skeletal winter branches. The FW-190 overshoots, climbing sharply to avoid ground collision. Second wave inbound. Bombs strike a supply depot near rail siding. Wooden structures erupt in flame, illuminating boxcars loaded with rations and mortar shells. German soldiers attempt to form bucket lines, but further detonations force retreat. Brushanskia restarts engine and arcs towards secondary target. A command post identified through intercepted signals. The building appears as dark rectangle against snow. Release. The blast shatters roof timbers. Radio masts collapse sideways. Communication along that sector falters abruptly. Flak intensifies. German gunners adjust altitude estimates with alarming speed. A burst detonates beneath Brushanskia's left wing, jolting aircraft violently. Control stick vibrates under strain. She compensates, keeping nose level until clear barrage. Behind her, one aircraft fails to respond to formation signal. A searchlight locks onto distant smoke plume, descending beyond tree line. Silence follows. There will be no confirmation until morning reconnaissance. Retreat path crosses frozen marshland. Snow reflects faint artillery flashes from miles away. The offensive is massive, continuous, grinding westward. Their small bombs contribute in increments measured not in territory, but in disruption. Landing at 217 is harsh. Wheels skid slightly on packed snow before catching. Mechanics rush forward despite cold, counting silhouettes automatically. One missing. Inside operations tent, casualty board is updated with deliberate handwriting. No ceremony, only acknowledgement. Reconnaissance at dawn confirms artillery battery neutralized. Depot heavily damaged, communication node destroyed. Soviet infantry reports reduced resistance during early morning push across river sector. The regiment prepares for another sortie before first light fades. Fatigue presses against concentration, yet no one suggests delay. By late January, they will cross into Germany itself. The war that began in defense of Moscow now advances toward Berlin. Brzezinski steps outside briefly before next briefing. Snow falls steadily, muting distant artillery thunder. She looks west, where horizon remains hidden beyond gray sky. Years of night flying have compressed fear into discipline, loss into resolve. Engines begin starting again behind her, because the offensive does not pause for grief, and the witches of the 46 Guards will follow it to the final border.